Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Long Talk. We're so happy that you have taken the time to come in and join the conversation on this evening. If you don't mind, would you take a moment and just hit the share button to allow others to come in and be a part of this meaningful dialogue tonight? And again, I will ask you, if you will, make sure that you get the word out concerning tonight's conversation. We have a meaningful presentation of dialogue that will definitely impact your life for the better on tonight. So quickly, while you still have time, go ahead and share this. Let somebody know that Daunta Long and the Long Talk Thursday edition is on the air. So we welcome all of you all that are here tonight, and thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of Long Talk. And so thankful that you would meet us here. We're here every Thursday night at 7:30 and every Tuesday night at 7:30. And for those of you that are watching tonight, if this is your first time, will you take the time to follow me at Daunta Long? I'm here on Facebook, also Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And if you will, just go ahead and follow me to stay up to date with all of the meaningful Long Talk dialogues and conversations that take place each time. So please take the time to follow me here at Daunta Long, that you may stay up to date with all of the dialogue here at Long Talk. Well, listen, I don't want to take any more time. I am just excited about tonight's discussion. I've been looking forward to this discussion for quite some time, guys. And I know, again, as I said earlier, this is going to be a blessing to your life. So please go ahead and sit back and enjoy for this Long Talk. And go ahead, grab a cup of coffee or the beverage of your choice, or go ahead and finish up that dinner and pull everyone in, because this dialogue is going to be meaningful. And tonight I'm going to make a special appeal. I need every man, every husband, every father, every uncle, every granddad, every brother, every male cousin. I need every man that you can get your hands on to gather around and tune in to tonight's Long Talk. This is going to be something that you must hear. You must hear. So please do that right now. But tonight, our special guest hails from the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's a noted author. He's a pastor. And tonight, he's going to come to us with his wonderful new release. Tonight, without any further ado, Long Talk audience, will you help me welcome my friend and my brother, Pastor Micaiah Young. Come on and receive him tonight. Pastor Micaiah Young. Pastor Micaiah Young. Pastor, how are you this evening?
I'm well. Thank you very much. Glad to be here, and glad for the privilege of being able to engage in this wonderful conversation that you're initiating for us this evening, and have been able to see some of the previous broadcasts as well. You're doing an incredible job of bringing great information to us and authors.
Oh, well, thank you so very much. I appreciate you and your compliment. Oh, what a joy and what a privilege it is to have you on tonight and to be in conversation with us, as I know that you are a very busy man. You are a husband, a father, you are a pastor, you're a traveling evangelist, and now also you are a published author. And tonight we're happy to talk to you because of what it is that you have been able to do with penning this book. So I know that the audience is anticipating and waiting, because many of them are already chiming in and already wanting to get this conversation going. So for those that perhaps do not know you exactly, just go ahead and just go a little more in depth as to exactly who is Mikhail Young.
Well, Um, I'd like to just capsize it. I could talk about a number of things that I've done and where I come from, but I'd like to just say that I consider myself to be a son. That is how I identify myself. I am a son, meaning that I am an individual who has been affirmed and validated by God, who has been hand selected for the journey that I've traveled, which has included many ups and downs, but ultimately it has informed my decision to be committed to serving people, to loving people, and to representing God in the earth and bringing restoration to individuals and in particular to men and boys, teaching them how to align themselves with their purpose and to embrace a healthy sense of identity. So today, if you ask me, who is Micaiah Young? I want you to tell everybody that Micaiah Young is a son validated by God.
Well, that's an interesting position for you to take because so many people want to be identified by a title, but you have chosen to take maybe the untraveled path of being identified as a son. And I'm so glad that you've taken this humble approach, in my opinion, because so many times all of us are doing our very best to climb the ladder of success, whether it's in ministry or corporate America or whatever capacity that we all seek to gain a bigger footprint in. But you've taken just the liberty of identifying as a son. And I think that really gets this conversation off to a good point to really discuss the nature of why you're here tonight. And I brought you here tonight to talk about this critically acclaimed publication that you have penned. And I want to ask you tonight, what has caused you to write this book, Made in His Image?
Well, I have to give all the credit to God because truthfully, it's not something that I wanted to do. I began working in the prison system several years ago, and I was working with individuals, all men, who had gotten involved in some very wayward lifestyles, and many of them had committed some very just heinous crimes. But through spending time with them, I realized that though I had never been incarcerated, though I had never been caught up in the fast life or life of crime, that there was something that I had in common with, I want to say, 90% of the men who came in my office. And that was that those individuals, if I asked them, where was your father or what was your relationship with him, they would all tell me either they did not know their father or they didn't have a relationship with him, or in many instances, their father was their cellmate. And so God really, really impressed upon my heart that if you're going to help these individuals, you got to deal with your own unresolved issues as it pertains to the absence of your father in your life. And so I accepted the challenge and I embarked upon a journey to find my father, to search for him, a man who I had never seen and I had never known. For 35 years, I searched for this man, but I had never found him. But at this point, as an adult, I embarked upon a journey, not just to find him, but a journey to find completeness, identity, and resolve. And that's why I wrote the book. I wrote along the way. While I was writing, I was being healed. And the more I was healed, the more I was able to help heal someone else.
Wow. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible that at that juncture in your life that you were on a search, as you said, to find that missing piece or that piece of you that you needed to gain more information on. And I want to say this: I have been so intrigued with this story that I've got a laundry list of questions that I want to ask you
Sure.
about this, because I was just taking some notes earlier when I was reading that you talk about in this book life disappointments, and you say that it is imperative that we learn to grieve the loss of expectations.
Sure.
And when I first read that, I was thinking, wow, exactly what were you meaning by that?
Well, simply this, that all of us in life have desires, we all have expectations. Not only do we have expectations, we have things in life that we deserve. All of us deserve to be loved, we deserve to be respected. None of us asked to come into the world. Now, there's several decisions in life that we have influence over, but there is at least one that we have no influence over, and that is the decision to be born. And so when we are born, our parents are obligated to love us. They're obligated to provide for us, to care for us. But the truth of the matter is that as much as that's what we're supposed to get, sometimes we don't always get what we're supposed to have. And so the idea that we will enjoy the life that we dream of or enjoy the life that we even deserve, sometimes in order to have the best that God offers you or wants for you, you have to learn how to accept the fact that, hey, I didn't get what I wanted. And I'm not going to stay in a place of bondage to my failed expectations. I've got to acknowledge that it didn't happen. I've got to grieve that I lost my expectation so that now I can be prepared to receive whatever else is available to me. And so specifically, my expectation was that I would have a father that would love me, that would care for me, that would be there. And he was not. And so in order for me to move on and be the man that I am today and that I should be, I had to get over that. And the only way to get over it was I had to acknowledge it, acknowledge the pain, and grieve it. Go through all the stages of grief, complete my grief, and then prepare myself for what was next. And sometimes what's next is better than what you lost.
Wow. Wow. I will not be in bondage to my failed expectations.
Sure.
Matter of fact, somebody who's watching me, I want you to pin that as your new declaration for today and for the rest of the week. I will not be in bondage to my failed expectations. I need at least 5 of you to write that in the comments because I believe it will be liberating, just as what Micaiah Young just said to me. I'm going to apply that to my life, sir, because so many times we can stay on the rabbit chase of trying to achieve things that are far out of our reach. And when we don't do that, what you're saying is we hold on to it for quite the length of time. And holding on to it for quite the length of time can be toxic because
Sure.
what you just said there, it causes us to miss out on what's in store or what's next.
And may I even say that sometimes we spend so much of our time trying to force people or spaces in time in our past to give us what we believe that they owe us. And the toxicity or the danger in that is that you allow yourself and your life to be stagnant and interrupted investing in places that do not have the capacity or the ability to give you what you need. And while you're investing in old places, the things that your life has waiting on you are being neglected and often underexperienced because you're trying to get that to happen for you. And so what I learned is that I had to forgive. I had to forgive my father who abandoned me, my father who rejected me, my father who didn't even want anybody to know that I was his son, which is why I today identify myself as a son, because no matter how that relationship went, it never revoked my privilege of being a son. And ultimately, God is the one that I identify with as being my father spiritually. But I had to forgive my father. And I learned that forgiveness is not about the person that hurt you. So when God, began to encourage me to forgive, I'm like, how can I forgive somebody who never said sorry? Ooh. And the Lord spoke to me and said that it's not about him. Forgiveness is not about the person that hurt you, but forgiveness is about you, because what forgiveness does is it does not erase the past. What happened, happened. But what it does is it allows your present and your future to exist independent of the past. Because you see, if I had continued to hold my father in bondage to what he did to me, if you're going to hold someone captive, you have to stay in the same place where they hurt you in order to keep them there. And if you're keeping them there, that means you got to stay there. And so if you're staying there, holding them in bondage, you're missing out on what God has for you in your future. So I learned to let it go.
Just let it go. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Listen, if you're just tuning in tonight, you are here on Long Talk with yours truly, Daunta Long, and also our special guest tonight, who is a published author, Micaiah Young, and we're having this discussion concerning his new release, Made in His Image. And tonight, as we are here, I'm just so delighted that even here in the opening, you have already begun to drop nuggets of freedom to our listening audience, because there are so many people that are hurt because of those failed expectations and things that they saw that they thought that they deserved, things that they wanted that they thought because they had enough money that they should have been entitled to, or because of any prerequisite that they had already put in place. But when, again, as you said, it was failed. And I love the part that you made, and we got to move on. But you said not that you deserved it. And so there's that responsibility factor that so many of us hold on to our pains and our hurts because we feel responsible that in some manner and somehow we inflicted it upon ourselves, right? But sure. I love what you said earlier, is that we cannot hold ourselves responsible. We must forgive ourselves in also understanding these life's disappointments. You also write that it is imperative. Oh, I love this part right here. You said it is imperative. Oh, my God. That we learn to grieve the loss of these expectations. What did you mean by grieve the loss?
Well, grief entails acknowledgement. You have to acknowledge. Ultimately, you end up at a point of acceptance. To grieve the loss is to accept the loss. And to accept the loss is to be open to what is new. And if you are not open to what's new, you remain stuck in the place of your pain. So you got to do like my children sing from Frozen. You got to learn how to let it go.
Just let it go.
Let it go. It's not that easy. I don't want to make light of it, but ultimately you got to get to that point through grieving that you're able to let it go.
You got to let it go. Got to let it go. Wow. Just let it go. Just let it go. I remember when I came to this part, I really had to really look at my life when you started talking about missing out on what I never had. This part really took me. You said, out of sight. My God, it's even difficult for me to say it, but you say it. Out of sight, out of mind is the preferable colloquialism. Out of sight, out of mind. But for me, he was out of sight, but he was never out of my mind. And I'm sure you're referring to your dad. When you said he was out of sight, but never out of my mind, help our viewing audience tonight understand what you meant by that.
Yeah, sure. Simply that I think that we try to sum things in life into categories that sound good for textbook, but don't always translate well in real life. There's a saying that says, out of sight, out of mind. Mm-hmm. And myself, like many other individuals who have not had what they desired or have not had in their reach what they wanted, the best way to cope is to act like you're unaffected, right? And so we say, I'm fine, I'm cool. I don't need him, I don't need nobody, I'm good. Those are coping mechanisms. They are mechanisms of defense to protect the heart, to protect the emotions from further injury. But the truth of the matter is that if I were to be honest, which I eventually became, I said those things also. But my truth was that although my father was always out of my sight, he was always on my mind. I never had him, but I always missed him. And you know why I missed him? I talk about this in the book. It's just like, like your body. There are certain organs that our bodies are supposed to have. And if you are born without it, or if you lose something, then there's going to be another area within your body that's going to overcompensate for the organ that it doesn't have. If you miss a lung, the other lung is going to have to overcompensate for the lung that is missing. If you miss a limb, another limb is going to overcompensate. If a car is built and the manufacturer forgets to put the muffler on there, there's going to be a deficit. Even though that car is brand new and never had a muffler, that car is going to miss in its performance what the muffler was supposed to assist it in doing. Even though it never had it, it was supposed to have it, so it will miss the presence of something that it was supposed to have but never had. And that's the same thing for me and many people. Although I never had them, I was supposed to. And so I missed what I never had, but I should have had. And so I longed for somebody that I never even knew because I was supposed to know him.
Jeez. This is no easy subject that you're talking about, because so many are dealing with this very issue, with the loss of a father or a father figure in their home.
Sure.
As you said, when you were working in the penal system, this was the common denominator. And for so many in our society, I know that we are still loaning, and that's why we're trying so desperately. Young, I want to be honest. I know even for many that are around us, I often wonder why it is seemingly the fact that so many are trying to overcompensate instead of just being what we call normal, although I know there's no such thing as normal, but you can tell that they are really trying to make up for something because something is missing, right?
Because
And
reality hurts.
mm,
The reality, some people avoid living in their reality, dealing with their truth, because being in a place of fantasy is more palatable. It's easier to deal with than to deal with the reality, which can be painful and grueling, and which involves a great investment of work in order to overcome and to be okay with who you are. It takes a lot of work. And many people, may I say this,
yes.
many men especially, because of the great responsibility that is placed on us as men from the time that we are boys, there's so much pressure on men until so many decide that they're going to just check out and not even try to be a man, because it's easier sometimes to just give in to the idea of, well, I can't do any better, or I can't handle this, or I can't manage these spaces and moments. I don't want to deal with this responsibility, because there's a lot of responsibility entailed in being a man. And so many people would rather not deal with the weight of reality than to embrace it and deal with whatever comes with it. And so they overcompensate in other ways, or they live in a fantasy, a false place, to avoid their truth, which is painful.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And I did it for many years myself, which is why I have found, even in my ministry, that since the time that I have been honest and even wrote the book and have been transparent, I've seen a difference in the response, because I've always talked about my story, but I didn't talk from a place of truth always. I shared what I thought would be palatable and what would get people off of me, because people have questions. And sometimes it's more comfortable to put out your own story, so that you can control your own narrative, as opposed to them being intrusive and getting too close to the sensitive matters of your heart. But when I was honest about my real story and how it really impacted me, I began to walk in a place and a level of freedom that I never imagined. And today I am grateful that God chose me for my journey, because I never would be where I am today if God had not allowed me to experience even the hurt and the pain that produced the strength that has been represented in my life today.
Wow.
I'm grateful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Again, if you're just joining us tonight, we're in this long talk with our special guest, pastor and published author Micaiah Young, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on his newest release, Made in His Image, which you can pick up a copy today of this new release at mjamesyoung.com. Go there tonight, pick up a copy of this newest release, Made in His Image. And as it is for me right now, I pray that it will be a blessing for you as you pick up a copy of that book. Pastor Young, again, I love how you just said, at one spectrum, you've got persons that are overcompensating. And at the end of the spectrum, or at the bottom, you have those that don't feel the need to even fight for it. So they're checking out. And in our culture and in our society, we are constantly on this seesaw of dealing with those that are overcompensating and these that they're just apathetic because they don't see the purpose.
What's the point?
What's the point? It's not worth anything. And this seesaw is, and somebody's watching this and saying, Pastor, stop moving. I'm getting nauseous. But I want to let you know that even God is telling me to give you this demonstration, because this is the fight that many of us are fighting to develop our image. It's this seesaw of overcompensating and even not caring or being apathetic. And so Pastor, while you in that book and as I was reading, talking about life disappointments, again, you said many times our reality is not as pretty as the fantasy because,
Mhm.
my God, this is good tonight. I wish we could just stay here, but I know time is ticking. So I want to ask you another thing. I was looking in the book earlier as I was preparing for this, and you were talking about fighting for daddy's attention. And this is the part where really spoke to my heart. You said men who have lacked early childhood validation eventually or many times become enemies to their brethren. Whoa. Let me read that again. You said men who have lacked early childhood validation, it causes them many times to become enemies to their brothers. Enemies to their brothers. Come on, unpack that for me. What do you mean by that?
Well, once again, we all deserve to be validated, to be loved and affirmed. And men and women need to be affirmed by their fathers. Our fathers give us identity. Um, and that happens early on. I'm blessed because I'm the first voice that both of my children heard when they were born. I whispered in their ear the moment of their birth that your daddy loves you. I spoke that into their ear, into their spirit every day of their newborn lives. And I believe that today they have an investment in them that will carry them throughout their lives. Should I even not be here beyond today, their dad gave them something that validated them. Well, that was important for me to give to them because I didn't have that. And I understand the struggle to feel validated,
Mm-hmm.
to feel valuable, to have identity, to really just to belong somewhere. I understand that. And I realize that just because you are grown doesn't mean that the incidents of your childhood fade.
Mm-hmm.
Unresolved childhood issues manifest in adulthood. And so what happens is you just become an adult with childhood issues. And many men and women, but in particular, I'm speaking of men. Many men, oftentimes, that have lacked that early life validation, have not received that from their fathers. When you don't get it, you still look for it. And so oftentimes they get into spaces, whether it be the workplace or in an environment that I and you are also very familiar with, the church perspective, that whole setting. Sometimes when we go into the ministry, we are looking for pastor now. Our pastors become like dad. Our first ladies become like mom. And in our culture, that's, it's the mom and pop kind of scenario. And so we're looking to them to father us. We're looking for our pastors. We're looking for our bishops or our leaders, whatever organizations you may be in and whatever that structure is, looking for them to validate us. And what I've discovered is that oftentimes, because we lack validation, in one of the chapters in my book, I say fighting for daddy's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And although these individuals are not our biological parents, sometimes in our mind, we replace the ones that were not there with the one that is there. And although that's not their role per se, we make them that. And in order to win their attention, oftentimes men fight against each other because they want to be important to daddy. And I'll tell you how I kind of got that idea, that revelation. I had gone through an experience and I write about it, where there was a colleague of mine who sought to portray me in a negative light before our superior. We had a mutual superior. And I thought how cruel and how malicious it was for him to do what he did to me. It wasn't a big deal, but it was the principle of it. Mm-hmm. Why would a brother cross another brother? Mm-hmm. Especially if you had not had the conversation with me first and allow me to explain to you or politely excuse you from business matters of mine that had nothing to do with him. And I was prepared. I went to a conference that we were at the same conference that evening, and I was prepared to light into him as soon as I could get across the room to where he was. Yeah. And as I looked across the room at him, I began to feel compassion immediately. And my rage, my anger, it was replaced with empathy because I saw a 40-year-old, something-year-old man. Really, I looked beyond that big exterior and I saw a little boy who was fighting for daddy's attention. And as I saw him postured and seated around and gazing at our superior, I saw him saying, "Daddy, look at me. I'm better than he is. Don't look at him. He's not that good. Choose me. Choose me." And it was at that moment that God showed me that I needed to be engaged in the business of bringing healing and wholeness to my brothers. And I couldn't do that if I was engaged in competition with them. So I reneged from any battle and I became a person that assisted in being healed and free from the pain of rejection and abandonment. That's all that is. But we will never be all that God wants us to be if we are fighting for daddy's attention.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Fighting for dad's attention. Doesn't matter how old you're saying, 40 plus years old. We've got men and women. I love that you were egalitarian in that statement, men and women.
Very important.
Because I know as brothers fight one another, but there's another dynamic. Sisters fight each other. And what is parallel while two brothers are fighting and two sisters are fighting, or God forbid, a brother is fighting against a sister, the common denominator is that we're all fighting for daddy's attention. And I love what you said there is that we've got to see this not through the lens of rage, because we're not really fighting our brother. We're just trying to gain dad's attention. We're just simply trying to find dad's attention. If you're just joining us tonight, you are in the middle of a dialogue, a long talk that is being a blessing, not only to me, but to so many. I see your comments. My God, this long talk tonight is really blessing the hearts of those of us who are really receiving what this published author and pastor is sharing with us. Tonight, if you need to, I'm asking you, please, ma'am, please, sir, go to the website, which is mjamesyoung.com, and pick up a copy of this book, Made in His Image. Tonight, we're only scratching the surface, as I've got about a dozen or more of these quotes that I don't even think I'm going to have time to get to in this book. And so you really need to take the time and read this during this time of crisis, during this time of pandemic, which is going to lead me into my next question. Why you've got nothing but time on your hands, sir, ma'am, why you've got nothing but time on your hands, pick up a copy of this book as I know it's going to be a blessing to your life. Pastor, please, I got to move further as time is getting away from us. Let me ask you this. Tonight, I deemed this conversation and I entitled it Finding Myself in the Crisis. And when I was reading your book and you're talking about being made in his image, I just want to very candidly ask you, how can I, or whomever is watching, find their very identity? Find out why they are made in his image in the middle of this pandemic / crisis.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I think that's an amazing question that you pose, and a great thought for us to all ponder upon.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks ago, I wrote a blurb about finding identity or finding myself during this time. I think this is one of the greatest opportunities that we have to find identity. And I'll tell you why. With all of the rigor and the hustle and bustle of our schedules, we have very little time rather to spend alone. And when you don't spend a lot of time alone, you don't have a lot of time to know you. You have time to engage with and to learn about and to know many other people. And many people stay busy because they want to avoid themselves. We're in this space where we are being quarantined or have been in quarantine. We have been in Wisconsin practicing safer at home. Some other states have been mandated to be at home, and there have been some enforcement by the law. So we are in a space that is unfamiliar. And although we have been told to social distance, to remain 6 feet apart from individuals, and many people are even social distancing in their homes because they are essential workers and they have to go out and they're coming back, and so they want to stay distant from their family members. But there's one individual during this time that none of us are able to avoid being in contact with. We cannot separate ourselves, not 6 feet, not 1, not an inch, not a centimeter, not a millimeter. We cannot separate ourselves from one person, and that is ourselves. And so in this moment, we have time to get acquainted with ourselves. And if you want to find identity, you have to take time and deal with you. You have to deal with every aspect of yourself. The parts of you that the world doesn't see, the parts of you that are not adorned or not draped with whatever things that we do to try to keep people from knowing our reality. I think of Jacob in my closing, who he struggled with identity throughout his life because he was born to a mother and a father where he had a brother who was preferred by his father. And what a impact that must have had on him, his self-esteem, his self-worth, that his father did not value him in the same way that he valued his brother. And so he became a fighter. He was fighting for his space, fighting. He continued to get involved in issues after issue, trouble after trouble. You talked about it earlier, a quote from my book. He married a woman who he woke up one day and found out that his reality was not as pretty as his fantasy. And he just dealt with a myriad of disappointment until he got to a place where the Bible said he was alone. There, Jacob was left alone, and he wrestled. Of course, there was this being that he was wrestling with, but I like to believe that the wrestle was with himself. And when he wrestled with himself and dealt with his reality, that's when he prevailed. And God was able to not just change him, because I think that, we look at it as he changed his name. He didn't just change his name, but what he did was he pulled out of him what was always there. He revealed the truth of who he was. And he revealed to him, God revealed to him, you're not the things that you've been told. You're not the person that you've been behaving. That's not who you really are. You are not a cheater. You're not a schemer. You are Israel. There is a nation within you. And when you are left alone, and you wrestle with your truth, you wrestle with your disappointment, you wrestle with your hurt, you will find a space where you are confronted even with talking to God and revealing to God your truth, your pain, everything. And in that moment, God will reveal to you who you are and give you identity, like he did for me. He told me, I separated you from your father because your father didn't qualify to give you what you needed. But you found him and found out that he wasn't what you needed. But what you needed, you had all the time. And though he has rejected you, and though he is ashamed that you are his son, it doesn't take away from the fact that you are a son, because I call you mine. And so today I say that I am a son. And I hope that every brother, that every person that's listening to me will begin to declare that I am a son. I've started a movement, and it's titled I Am a Son. That's why I'm wearing my I Am a Son t-shirt. You can get this shirt too. But this movement is all about affirming men. The one thing that we all have in common is no matter what our role in life is, no matter if we are fathers or brothers or CEOs or if we are a janitor or whatever, all of us are united by the common bond that we are sons. And whether we have been validated or not by our biological fathers, our Father in heaven has given us identity. We were made in his image and we are covered by his shadow, and we are sons. So I want every man that's listening to say, I am a son. I am a son. And join me in the movement, I am a son.
Wow. Wow. So please, man who's watching this, son, would you just go over, as soon as this broadcast is over, go over to the Facebook page. Those that are watching on Facebook, if you're watching on one of the other platforms, if you'll go to facebook.com, I am a son, and go ahead and follow this movement as Pastor Young is just continuing this dialogue and this conversation and helping all of us understand that we're made in his image and that we are the son. Scripture says we are the sons of God. And so I understand why this is so significant, because if we don't identify as a son, then we certainly have not found out who we really are. And you've done a marvelous job here tonight talking about this wonderful topic of understanding that we all are a son. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on and talking to us tonight. And I want to say once again to as many that are watching to go ahead and pick up a copy of Micaiah J. Young's newest release, Made in His Image, which you can pick up right now. Just go over to the website at mjamesyoung.com. mjamesyoung.com. Well, tonight, in our close, I just want to say to each person, I'm moved. I'm moved beyond anything that I have ever heard before, even while we're talking about LongTalk. What I'm hearing tonight is that we cannot identify other than the position that God has called us to be, and that is a son, which is a child. which is that humble position to help us understand our role. And as Pastor Young said earlier, not that we're fighting against anybody else for self-identity or fighting against anyone else for who we are to be. We're not holding on to what went wrong. We're not angry. We're not upset. We're not holding grudges. We're letting it go. And in this long talk, I pray that you have let it go, that this has been a moment of liberation, that you no longer feel it necessary or deem it absolutely imperative to get even, to lash out, or even to get even or get back at someone, because all of us are hurting, because most of us have not achieved what we thought that we deserved to achieve. But in this long talk tonight, I pray that you now can find your identity in the middle of this crisis, because as the pastor said earlier, you've got nothing but time. A guy on the street once said it like this: there's nothing separating us but space and opportunity. We've got it. And so let's take the time to understand who we are and what our role is in today's culture. Well, thank you so much for watching. Also, please make it your business to join us this coming Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. for another edition of Long Talk, where my special guest will hail from, I believe it's Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a published author and also he's a pastor. He's entitled a new book called Soul Care. Pastor Braxton Bowser will be our very special guest on this Tuesday at 7:30 on Long Talk. Until then, God bless you, and I hope you've enjoyed this rendition of Long Talk. God bless you.